Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Tony Hughes and welcome to another video. We've been talking about good news because that's what we want to hear. When we focus on Jesus, phenomenal things happen, hands down. Now, the question I want you to be navigating through is this: did Jesus resurrect from the dead? Why would that be important to discuss? Why would that be significant to hear? Because if it is true, there is life after death. Now, in Mark chapter 16, this is where we begin our journey. Mark chapter 16, starting verse 1, we got to unpack this. This is what it reads. It says, when the Sabbath day was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go anoint Jesus' body. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, who will roll away the stone from the entrance of the tomb? In verse 4, it says this, but when they looked up, they saw that the stone had already been moved away. When they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in white robes sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed, thinking, what are you doing? What's going on? Why are you here? Notice what he says. Don't be alarmed, he said. You're looking for Jesus the Nazarene who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where we lay him? But go, tell his disciples and Peter. He's going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him just as you were told. Trembling with bewilderment, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were so afraid. What's interesting is when they were going up to the tomb, they were going to take care of Jesus, but they're thinking to themselves, we have to move the stone. How are we going to get in? When they show up, the stone's already gone. It's moved aside, and they see someone inside. Of course, they're overwhelmed. Of course, there's fear. There's curiosity there. But the conversation that they have with this man is something unique and powerful. He says Jesus is not dead. He's resurrected. Of course, they're overwhelmed. Of course, they're excited. Of course, they're fearful and thinking, I don't even know what to do with this information. It said that they fled out of the tomb. It wasn't like, oh, jolly walk. They freaked out and ran off. Okay, because they don't know how to handle this information. Now let's keep going. It says in verse 9, when Jesus rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he had driven 7 demons. Okay, this woman's life was a struggle, but Jesus restored her. That is the nature of God. Love, reconciliation, transformation. That's why we worship him. Powerful. It says this in verse 10. She went out and told those who had been with him, who were mourning and weeping. When they heard that Jesus was alive and that she had seen him, they did not believe it though. Afterwards, Jesus appeared in a different form to 2 of them while they were walking in the country. These returned and reported it to the rest, but they did not believe them either. Later, Jesus appeared to the 11 and they were eating. He rebuked them for their lack of faith and their stubborn refusal to believe those who had seen him after he had risen from the dead. Okay, this is what's going on here. Jesus shows up and actually has a conversation with both Marys. They go and tell the disciples, and the disciples dismiss it. Jesus shows up and it shows himself to 2 other people. They go to the disciples and say, Jesus is alive. Look, he's here. We saw him. We experienced it. The disciples dismissed it and said, nah, not true. Jesus shows up. He appears to the 11. They were eating. They were together. And Jesus rebukes them. He's like, guys, I've been showing up. I've been having a conversation with people, but you're lacking faith right now. In John chapter 20, it says, starting in verse 24, it says, now Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, we have seen the Lord. But he said to them, unless I see the nail-scarred marks and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand in its side, I will not believe. A week later, the disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. And he said to Thomas, put your finger here. See my hands? Reach out your hand and put it on my side. Stop doubting and believe. Thomas said to him, my Lord and my God. Thomas finally gets it, right? So Thomas is not with the 11. Jesus shows up, has a conversation and said, hey, I'm alive. They're like, yeah, right on. Thomas isn't present. Thomas shows up later on. The disciples are like, hey, guess what? We just saw Jesus. We had a conversation with him. Thomas is like, nope, I won't believe. I won't believe. I won't believe. I need eye proof. I need to see his hands, scarred hands. I need to see the cut in his side, and I need to have a conversation with him. A week later, Thomas is still there. Okay, the disciples, the 11 of them, they believe in Jesus' resurrection because they saw him, and Thomas doesn't accept that in his heart. Jesus shows up, has a conversation with him, and he says, peace be with you, and he targets Thomas, says, Thomas, come here. Look at my hands. Look at my side. Stop your doubting. Then Thomas responds with, my Lord and my God. Check out what Jesus says. Then Jesus told him, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who haven't seen yet believe. Then it says this in verse 30. Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in the book, meaning John, they are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, he is the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. Here's the question I want you to be thinking about. Did Jesus resurrect from the dead? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, books in the Bible, historical, accurate resources that we can look into and trust, says he did. What does that do for us? Gives us peace, gives us hope, gives us joy, gives us a thinking this isn't just one life. We don't have just one life. We live here physically, but there's life after death. There's avalanches of evidence out there. I would encourage you, look up Lee Strobel, look for Case for Christ, because he was a critic that despised Christianity because his wife became a follower and he was upset because she did, and he wanted to destroy the Christian faith. He spent several years trying to destroy the Christian faith, and he looked at it with that intent, and he found that there's so much evidence out there that you and I can benefit from in saying, you know what, Jesus is legit. Jesus and Mark, his mission was to love people, serve people, help people, tell people about God's kingdom. He can sympathize with us, relate with us. He was abused, he was mocked, he was spit at, he was rejected. Okay, he was crucified. We can relate. He faced death and he experienced death. We can relate with him. But not only that, he resurrected from the dead. Why did he do it though? Love. Is Jesus trustworthy? Yes. Did he resurrect from the dead? Yes. Did the disciples doubt him? Yeah. It makes sense. Thomas doubted him. Yeah. It makes sense because it's something that we can't grasp. But what's interesting is that Jesus kept showing up. Jesus kept intervening in their life and they kept seeking him. So my challenge for you is this. Grab a Bible, open up to the Gospel of Mark, check out Jesus for yourself. Be a truth seeker, because when you do, you will find answers to your questions. As you're seeking who Jesus is, joy will come in your life. Transformation will occur. I love you. I hope you're encouraged. Hope you're doing well. Talk to you soon.